Hey everyone, my name's Matthew. This is my Model Y behind me. I go by Isle of Coffee on the Tesla Motor Club forums. Do you find your Model Y loud? Well, I did. When I took delivery of this car, it wasn't immediately noticeable for me. I'd say probably within a few days, I'd start driving and I'd get these kind of headaches, ear pain, ear pressure. It's hard to describe, and I felt like maybe I'm nuts, but I know it sounds weird to describe an EV as loud, but let me tell you, it's one thing that's driven me bonkers, and I'm here to tell you how to solve it. No other YouTube video covers what I'm about to cover. I've researched absolutely everything in regards to what is out there in terms of quieting your ride on the Model Y. I've bought pretty well every single product that you can buy to quiet the ride of the Model Y. I've also 3D printed stuff that I've designed. I've come up with novel solutions, and I've taken things right apart. Now, just in case you're watching this and you think my Model Y is not loud, what's he talking about? Well, let me tell you, your ride might be quiet. It might be one of the select few. However, most of the Model Ys that I've ridden in have this problem. Most of the reviews do comment about the Model Y's cabin noise being, not quite as refined as some other competitors. It really has to do with the resonant frequency that I'm referring to, which is quite low. Your passengers may notice it, maybe you don't. If you've ever want to come for a ride in my car, you might say, it is quieter somehow. I don't know how that is. Well, it's because most of the frequencies that I'm trying to eliminate from this car come in the 30 to 40 hertz, even up to the 50 hertz range, which is quite low. The frequencies may go lower than that. That's just what I'm able to record with my phone. My phone seems to kind of end at 34 hertz, where it stops to be able to pick up things reliably. It's the kind of noise that after a long drive, you might feel that you have a headache or some ear pressure. Brain fog is another word I'd describe it. It's something that you don't actively might not hear for some people, but it is present. So before I begin, I'm going to cover the 3 items roughly that are of importance in quieting your Model Y. The first is the hatch. Now there's a few things that I've done and that even Tesla has done in order to address that, namely hatch stop adjustment, and as well as talking about this seal here. Secondly is the suspension. The suspension is, you can call it sporty, I'll call it rough. It's a little bit harsh considering that this car is, well, I don't have the performance version, I just have the long range version. It's a little bit rough. And some of that translates into NVH, noise, vibration, and harshness. And I did replace mine with coilovers. However, you don't need to go that route. I do have some other suggestions for that. And lastly is wind noise. Wind noise is pretty well what every YouTube video talks about, maybe because they like to throw in their Amazon affiliate link for selling little seal covers. There is quite a lot of merit to that, and it does improve. However, I'd argue that that's not the main source of noise that people feel while riding in the Model Y, but I will cover some of those. So one of the main things that Model 3 owners will say if they've ever ridden in a Model Y is, it's so much louder. Well, yeah, because it's open to the rest of the cabin, and this is a big space, and it's a big space that collects a lot of air movement, a lot of suspension noise as well, and you've got this big heavy hatch. I'm sure you might have seen if you're looking into this, the YouTube video where this gentleman uses an envelope to adjust his hatch stops on a Model S to reduce pressure buffeting. Yes, 100%. That's absolutely required as a kind of first step if you don't want to go into this very far. However, one of the things that they do talk about in that video is that, yeah, you need to align these 4 points of contact, because really that's all that's basically holding this big heavy hatch to the body of the car, along with the actual latch itself. But it's because any movement along this gasket creates a pressure effect inside the cabin. So rather than, because I adjusted the hatch stops, they didn't seem to do much for me. I tried probably, I don't know, 50 different positions, and really until sometimes my hatch gap would be quite extreme where I'd have water penetration. So I've tried everything. I did find that the more extreme the panel gap was, the better the result. However, that is not a real solution. So what I did instead was I figured, since the gasket is what's allowing movement and air pressure, I thought I'd stiffen it up a bit. And that really is quite simple. I know that some people do this on older vehicles from time to time. They put basically a tubing inside the gasket in order to stiffen it up. I'll show you how to do that. It's quite simple. It's like it requires maybe $5 of vinyl tubing, and it creates an instant improvement. And you need to do this first before adjusting hatch stops. If you want to go down the total route, this is what's required first, because it will change the closing height of your hatch, and the points of contact will then need adjusting afterwards. So basically, you're going to want to take a vinyl tube like this. This is 3/8. That's what I bought, because that's what I figured was required. However, it is a little bit thick, 3/8 inch outer diameter tubing. It did create an issue, not on mine. I did this on a friend's Model Y, and the hatch did not latch properly right away. After a few opens and closes, it did actually resolve itself. But after reading people's feedback, after I shared this on Reddit and Tesla Motor Club, it seems like 5/8 inch outer diameter is probably the winner. Sorry, not 5/8. So basically, it's super simple. You want to take a vinyl tube, and you pretty well want to cut it in I'd say like a triangular piece almost, so that it can slip through the gasket really easily. I'm just going to this is demonstration purposes on a camera, so please excuse me, but it'll end up looking like that. Now, you'll want to maybe cover that with electrical tape, just to because these can get a little bit pointy in the gasket. And now let me just grab my phone. Basically, now I've done it at the top, and I 100% recommend that you do it this way as well. Up here, I'm not sure if you can see it. Up here is where I inserted the tubing. Now it's split in two, so I'm not sure if we can really make that out there, but that is where I fished it in. Now I have 3 pieces here. I tried to do it all in one, but basically you're going to want to push it through. Oh boy. Basically you're going to want to push it through here, and maybe you probably want to use, and actually you definitely want to use 303 Aerospace or some other waxy car wash spray, and spraying it along the tube as you insert it here. You can also, there are little holes along the way, and I do recommend that you spray it in there before the tube gets there. So like spray, spray, spray. All I was able to do, and I tried my darndest, was that I could get a tube from here down to here, all the way down here. I believe it stops somewhere here. It did get a little bit tricky to keep pushing it along. I wanted one piece, but that seemed impossible. So basically I have the same thing going around the other side. And then I have one piece that just kind of goes along the middle. And each time I put it through basically one of these little holes here. And it actually stretches quite a bit. You don't really need to worry too much. I mean, yeah, okay, there's a little bit of a tear, but that's all that's left in terms of in doing this. So recently I was vindicated by Tesla for this discovery. I did this install on a fellow's Model Y from a local Facebook group who also was complaining about noise. And as we were putting in the tube, we noticed there was already tube in there. Tesla has been putting in tubing into the seal of the gasket for some Model Ys. I don't know who has it and who doesn't. I don't know the reason behind it. It's also a little bit unusual that in that case, it was maybe a bit of gasket here and a bit of gasket here down below. There was really no rhyme or reason to the location of it. It was missing in most places. I did notice when I drove in that Y at the beginning that the buffeting low bassy resonance noise wasn't as bad as, say, my car on delivery, where it didn't even have any tubing in the gasket. So that was kind of interesting. There have been a few other people after I shared this on Tesla Motor Club that have stated the same thing, that their vehicle had tubing in it, and those Model Ys were produced, I think, from the 2020 range. Mine's from 2021, it was missing, and the one that I saw personally was within the 2022 year, this year, that had it. So that's a little bit unusual. I can't explain it, but it does explain that Tesla is aware of this and has tried to come up with fixes. And speaking of things that Tesla's done to address this issue, aside from adjusting hatch stops and aside from putting in tubing in the gasket, probably at the factory, there's also one other service bulletin that they've done, which is not widely known. I reached out to Tesla Canada here. They said they had no record of it. However, I've seen other, it might have been the service center, I've seen other Canadian Ys with this done. Basically, it's a small rubber piece similar to this. This is 3D printed, but Tesla has manufactured their own. And basically, it goes into the tail light area like this. And I'm not sure even if this is the right one for that space, but I did have to come up with a few designs for this. This is printed out of the TPU. But basically the idea was they put this in here, and that will create rigidity with the hatch and stop it from flexing. I have done one that fits much better than that one, and it did not seem to resolve the issue. As well, as part of that service bulletin, Tesla did put a rubber gasket seal in this area, which I've done. I just find, if anything, it does keep the hatch area cleaner during the winter season. So you've put in this vinyl tubing in the gasket, and now you're going to have to recalibrate these hatch stops. Now I'm going to take these off. I'm going to talk about these in a second. To calibrate hatch stops, I think there's a few videos about this, but I'll touch on it briefly. You're going to want to have to unscrew this entire thing. I recommend it. You're going to have to hold this plastic and the rubber to make sure to unscrew them at the same time evenly. kind of keeps its position safely when you screw it back in. And you basically screw the rubber piece through this to adjust it. So you'll see it here as I kind of turn this, it adjusts the height of the rubber stopper. So you're going to want to do that. You're going to want to do it until basically a piece of paper can not like pretty well hold it tightly. I'd say probably even rip it, maybe fold the paper a few times. They all have to do that at the same, like basically the same pressure level. So there will be a little bit of finessing so that paper is tight on this end. It's also tight on this end. And as well on the bottom stoppers, which are a bit easier to adjust here and here. You're going to want to make sure that they are all even. Lastly, so you've done all that. You probably will have noticed an improvement already in the cabin noise quite significantly. But if you want to take it to the next level and you've got a 3D printer handy, there are manual ways to do this as well. I'll put the link in the comments so that you can follow a tutorial on Tesla Motor Club by a user, MyY, who also gave me this idea, was to basically create a rigid hatch stop. Now, the idea is that's great that there's these rubber stoppers here, but even still, those in of themselves can allow some flex of the hatch. So how do we prevent that? Well, let's put some more rigid material in there. So I created these, which are available on Thingiverse. You can download them and 3D print them. I've printed this out of TPU. I recommend TPU or PETG, which is a really hard plastic and has a high melting point. So even in your car, if you don't have cabin overheat protection, you don't have to worry about that deforming. But basically, this guy just slips on top here, and you can see that the rubber is still visible. So any anti-slip function from that dowel should be still present. Basically, what you're going to want to do on how I've put this on Thingiverse is measure the distance of only the rubber component coming out of the nut here. And that depth in millimeters is the file that you're going to want to download. You can I'd recommend printing probably a few. I've printed hundreds of them. Trying to figure out the best fit, but you probably want to print a couple just to get the right height for that. So I cut the video here because I just dropped my Galaxy Fold, which it hurt quite a bit because now the inner screen is broken. Anyway, continuing on, I was just about to mention that, knocking the quarter panels here, they sound pretty solid, right? And here, it sounds pretty, I'd say, hollow, which is expected. I thought that by making those areas more solid would decrease resonance in this area, which was kind of identified to be a problem area. That doesn't do anything. Putting sound deadening in the doors probably does very little for ambient cabin noise, but there is a spot in the rear quarter panel that is affected with sound deadening material, and I'm going to show you how. Okay, so to take apart the quarter panels, I'm just going to do it probably in a time lapse here. It's quite simple. You don't really need to worry too much. You might see a clip might kind of break, but I wouldn't fret over it. It's actually a multi-stage process. I forgot here. Hold on one second. There's a few things that you need to do in order to remove this. First, basically this panel here. That's our seal. So next comes this piece here, which just really clips off, not a big deal. Then you can take off these push pins. There's one here. I'm not sure if there's any others. I don't think so. You'll need a flathead screwdriver to take that off, or capable fingernails. And basically, Bob's your uncle. Sorry, forgot that piece here. Okay, well there's the big opening here. It's not so, doesn't have to be scary, but basically I just wanted to illustrate here. It's this. This is the rear wheel well cover. This is a big giant piece of foam here, and it really, I can lift it up. It's basically for noise cancellation. And here, under here, that is, I'm not sure if you can see it, I hope you can. That is the wheel well, and I've covered it with about 3 layers of sound deadening material. I honestly can say, I did this last. I've done all these other places, like in here, on the bottom as well. I've done it in underneath here as well. None of them seem to have as big impact, because after I had installed it, I thought, oh boy, what have I done? I mean, I wasted all this time and really nothing had happened. So I went back and I looked at it, I installed it here, and a world of difference. So if I were going to go back and do it all over again, I would only put it on that section, and that's the only place that makes any difference due to the suspension and the noise from the rear suspension traveling into the cabin. I 100% recommend that. The sound deadening material I used is just your standard Amazon 80 mil material, butyl, I guess is what it's called. I haven't worked with it before. You do need a roller to kind of push it down onto the surface, otherwise it is not installed correctly. But really, it's just those 2 rear wheel wells that are of utmost importance if you want to go down that route. Otherwise, you don't need to. There's other things that you can do to eliminate hatch noise. I mentioned this, I got this off Amazon for $200. This is great. I have used it extensively. It folds in half. I know now that some Model Ys, I guess just pretty well not the Fremont built ones, which this is. They all come with parcel shelves now, but it does work. This is a very similar material to the other trunk panels here. It's kind of like a woody, I'm not sure if that's wood underneath. I think it is particle board. It does help from sound transmitting into the cabin. What doesn't work are those rollable ones. I have that as well. That does absolutely nothing. Don't waste your money if your goal is to reduce cabin noise. I do have MountainPass performance coilovers as well. As I mentioned, it does help a lot with the harshness. So if you reduce the amount of travel, or slow down rather, the travel and the suspension on compression and rebound, which is what these would do, even if it's a fraction of a second, it does help with translating that energy elsewhere into the car in terms of noise. I have nothing but positive things to say. I don't know if it will necessarily, if you did none of the other things that I mentioned and you only put in the coilovers, you'd still have the same problem. I know because I installed the coilovers and I had messed with the hatch in such a way that the problem came back and it was just as annoying. So they do help with ride comfort and perhaps a little bit of that translating into cabin noise, but it's not it's not what you absolutely have to do if you want to fix this issue, because they are quite expensive. I mentioned I bought every single accessory you can buy for sound proofing, sound reducing. Well, one of the lesser known ones are front wheel well insulators, and it's the same cottony fabric material that is in the rear, but they're not in the front. And these are quite a pain to install. They have little pins, push pins that you need to replace because now you're adding a little bit of an extra depth for that. It does reduce noise. I'd say probably about 5 to 7% of noise. And I'm not sure if it's highway or regular city driving that it's improved. But there is a difference there. Now, these came with something else, which was this piece here. This piece is completely useless. Do not buy this by itself. It's they market it on AliExpress and other places as noise reduction from the front, but I can't possibly see how having that will reduce noise transmission into the cabin. I mean, I guess this could vibrate, but I can't tell you that it does anything whatsoever. I wouldn't waste your money on it. And lastly, wind noise, gaskets. Yes, this does help improve, and you can get these from any reseller on Amazon. They do help. They do also keep your door sills clean. I haven't washed my car, and it does keep this area clean and tidy from rain and other debris. Now to talk about some other things that didn't do anything for me, but yes, I did try the roof seal. They sell a little mini rubber seal for the sunroof, and you basically stuff it in along the gap between your sunroof. That did not do anything at all that I could perceive, and it actually started coming loose at the back, and it's quite tricky to install. I wouldn't waste your money on it, especially I think some of them range from $20 to $30. It's totally not worth it at all. Some other things that I tried that didn't work. There was a video in Mandarin that I had someone translate for me, and basically they suggested putting felt tape on this catch for the hatch, and that did not do anything that I could tell. I've also tried lowering this catch, which you can do with the proper tools by, not by very much, a few millimeters. You'd think that by grabbing the hatch and pulling it down tighter, it would reduce movement. It's a logical thought. It didn't. It made it so much more worse. So I put this back to where it was originally. And lastly, the only other product that I'm aware of that will reduce noise, or at least has the word noise reduction in it, is a skid plate for the front underneath the vehicle, made out of metal, but it also has, I think, what is probably a layer of some type of rubber membrane that might reduce road noise. I'm not entirely sure. I've asked somebody that installed something like that recently on Tesla Motor Club, and they could say basically that they could not tell a difference it wasn't worse, is what they said. It wasn't worse than the stock skid plate, if you could call it that, in terms of noise reduction. So there you have it. I've covered every single noise related product, every solution that I've researched or found about online. even if it's in Mandarin. I'm pretty sure I've looked at everything. I've researched this extensively. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, I wouldn't mind a thumbs up, even though I probably won't make another video again. I'm just really passionate about this particular topic on this vehicle. And I just wanted to help people that maybe weren't on the Tesla Motor Club forums or on Reddit. I know that there's a lot of people on YouTube that complained about this, so I just thought I'd make a video for them or you guys. And yeah, I hope you appreciate it. Thanks. Take care.